Rampage is a blockbuster action movie that has recently debuted in the film world. The movie is based off the 1986 hit video game under the title of Rampage. The idea of the game was to cause destruction to a city as a giant monster. The movie takes a turn with this idea that there is a hero within the monsters rather than basing it solely off destruction. Our protagonist, played by The Rock, is a zoologist, former game warden, and military operative. He is now living in the city and working at a zoo, taking care of the animals. One of the animals is named George. George is an albino gorilla, and there is only one of his kind. This is a little cliche, but I guess it can help with some symbolism and hold more impact than at a slight glance. George and Johnson team up later on in the movie to take down some of the main villains, and honestly, it's a cool action sequence that left me genuinely happy with what I was watching. Rampage suffers from okay but not great CGI, and when you make a movie on giant monsters destroying the city, I would say CGI is pretty important and should be really well done. The movie also lacks a proper villain and constantly jumps around between people and the monsters. The two main villains, who are against everyone, are barely rememberable and left me saying, wait, what was their names? The movie isn't terrible beside a few parts. It honestly was an enjoyable movie, even with some of the problems left in it. Rampage doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's noted in this. For instance, later on in the movie at the very end, George fake dies and makes everyone get emotional, but then moves and flips off the protagonist and laughs. After everything that happened, this gorilla wants to fake dead and flip off the protagonist, but for what? Comedic effect? Yeah, you can get some people, but it just doesn't make sense. Why would George do that at that time? I will cut it slack, seeing as the moment was a little humorous, but it doesn't change the fact that it was very climactic, action-packed, and serious up until that point, and it kind of ruined the moment for me. One of the biggest problems with the movie was one of the main villains, this guy. The overall performance that he gave was absolutely terrible. It's as if the director fired the actor who was supposed to play him, took a lunch break, went outside and pulled a random guy in to be this villain. His actions are awkward, facial expressions are weird, and you can't picture him playing that character correctly. On the other hand, the second villain wasn't too bad. She still had her flaws and awkward moments, and it made for a black and white character half the time. She really didn't have a main goal rather than just to help her company and backstab everyone that works for her, basically. The actors who do well are The Rock, Naomi Harris, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and this guy. Speaking of Joe, his part in the movie was really well done, and I wanted to see more of him, but sadly he dies off within the few minutes after his reveal. He only has a short amount of screen time, but it's really well done, and he played a good character. Now, was the character notable and rememberable? More than the villains, I would say. In the moment he's first shown, he seems like he would be the one big bad guy to go against The Rock and George and take them on both and have a hard time putting him down. But, sadly, we didn't get to see that. In the end, the movie left me cringing at the villains more than despising them. I had a fun time watching this, and the story was enjoyable, and then the performances from the main actors were pretty good. If they took the time to fix the CGI, cast new actors for the villains, and made the plot element more of a mystery to leave the viewer questioning what was going on, then I would give this a good review, but sadly I'll have to give it a 6.5 out of 10.